You're listening to the Equip Podcast, a ministry of Austin Ridge Bible Church. To learn more about upcoming Equip classes and events, visit www.austinridge.org/equip. Hi guys, we're now several weeks into sheltering at home, and if you're like me, your social media accounts have become inundated with articles, opinions, research, and conspiracy theories about all things COVID-19. As we're parsing through this information and forming our own opinions, the team wanted to discuss how Christ followers should interact with all of this information and how we can lovingly communicate with others who have differences in opinion. Enjoy the show.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway.
Looking at how small that closet is giving me claustrophobia on my side.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Oh,
It's pretty small. Yikes.
I have actual claustrophobia, like the real deal.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. I don't. Sometimes if an elevator is really, really slow, I'm like, okay, it's time to be done in the elevator. Like, particularly when they stop and the door doesn't open and you're like, what's going on here? So anyway.
Yeah, I can't. Like, my chest is tight talking about it. We got to talk about it.
When did you realize that? When did you discover that?
So I used to, when I taught at Arlington High, it was a really old building built in the 20s, and I didn't have a classroom, and I had to push a cart from one room to the next based on whatever teacher had a conference period at that time. And and sometimes it was upstairs and sometimes it was downstairs, and I would get stuck in that elevator all the time. And there were no cell phones back then. It was mid-90s, because I'm old, Joey. I taught my first class of seniors in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know when you graduated from high school, because I know I could have taught you.
Can I tell you that I was 9 years old in 1995?
So you graduated what? So you're younger than me though, right? I graduated in 91.
I graduated in 93. I finished college in 2.5 years.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to do the math. I'm like, how did you start teaching in 95? Holy cow.
2.5 years. So remember, I got married when I was 19. So
okay.
Jared.
Did you have a lot of college credit coming out of high school?
Yes. I had 30 hours coming out of high school.
Oh, man.
And then Jared pretty much quit school so that I could go through, and I took like 40 hours at a time. I mean, it was something ridiculous. And I mean, I have zero common sense, but I can pretty much take in anything book-wise. So, yeah. Anyway, they were trying this new teaching program where you didn't have to take education courses. You just student taught for a year. So it was basically like on-the-job training. And so technically, at 2.5 years, I had a full-time classroom, but I had a supervising teacher. So I taught for a year without getting paid, but I didn't have to take all those education classes.
Okay. Was that in Dallas or Wichita Falls? Where were you?
That was in Arlington. It was at
Arlington.
University of Texas at Arlington.
Okay.
That was the cheapest place in Texas. After we got married, we did research. Where can you go to college the cheapest? And that was it. That's where we moved.
All the while, Joey's just going to bed at 7:30.
Living his best life.
Trying to learn to read, basically.
Oh, I'm so old.
Well, so yeah, I was trying to think. So I think I've told you guys this before. My brother is 11 years older, so he graduated in 93, and my sister.
I seem way younger than him, right?
Totally. That wasn't very convincing, was it?
Yeah.
And my sister is 7 years older, so she graduated in 97. So I graduated high school in 2004.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah. 2004. Wow. I'd been married 9 years in 2004.
Yep. I'd already been married 10 years.
Yeah, fun times. I think talking about our age should become a segment of every podcast that we do. Hey, listen, this is one of those times, we've done this before, but this is one of those times we're actually doing a re-record. And maybe sometime in the future, we'll release some things we've done that didn't see the light of day. But we recorded it earlier this week, and we just felt like, we just didn't do it justice. And we want to make sure that what we release is profitable for you who are listening. And we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that's honoring the Lord and that is honoring to the time in which you take and which we take to produce these things. So we're going to have a conversation today, and actually today's conversation, things might change in 7 days, but as of it stands right now at time of recording, we're not going to force recordings, and we really haven't so far to date, but we definitely don't want to do that in the future. And so over the next couple of weeks, you might see some reruns, or hear some reruns, I should say. And we encourage you to go back and listen to some previous episodes. Again, if you haven't subscribed yet, you're only listening to this online via social media, we encourage you to subscribe on Stitcher or iTunes at Equip Austin Ridge is what it's called, and receive updates and such. And then we have a Facebook page, which is also called Equip Austin Ridge, and you get updates there. But today, I don't want to call it sort of a recap slash, finale of any sorts, but in some ways, we kind of want to just talk about kind of the current state of where we are and how Christ followers fit into what's going on. So before we totally jump in, I just want to hear from these guys, Lorri and Jeff. What have you guys been thinking, processing? What have you guys been chewing on over the last week or so? And we'll just see where this thing goes.
Gosh, I don't know. I guess what I have been processing through a lot is I have lost all sense of control. We've talked about how that's been big with me, that I had this illusion that I had some control over my schedule, over my family, over my work, how hard I would work, how hard I wouldn't work, all of those kind of things. And I think that what has been illuminated to me, it's what I already knew, but just that the only real answers come from God and his word. We have been inundated with so much data, some of it really far to one end of the spectrum politically, I guess, some completely on the other end. And I have found myself caught up in that a little bit, especially in the last couple of weeks where we kind of normalized things. So now I've had time to sit down and sort of listen to more and think about more and hear more conspiracy theories. And I just haven't had time for that. And now I feel like I have, and it's caused some turmoil in my soul a little bit. Like, how do I respond? Do I respond? Should I just get off of Facebook altogether? So I've been struggling with that and how to respond to that kind of stuff, and if to respond.
Lorri, what's your natural tendency?
Disengage.
Okay. And what is...
That's actually my natural tendency in all matters.
Yeah. What's the cost benefit analysis of, like, you can't just say the blanket statement, well, just disengage, right? Because there's some things we should engage with. Yeah. So how do you reconcile that? What's the process been like? How have you, when you see something and your heart, because I just know for me, like I went down this rabbit trail on Saturday morning. I woke up and I opened my phone and I saw the conspiracy theorist stuff, and like, man, did I start traveling down, and then I had to catch myself, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But how do you process that as you evaluate?
So I really try to keep Matthew 12:36 in my head, which is basically the verse where Jesus says that we're going to give account for every careless word that we speak. It doesn't say every word that we speak. It says every careless word that we speak. And right now, most of the speaking that's being done is via text or social media, because we're just not with each other. And so I've been trying to apply that. Like, what is a careless word when it comes to a conspiracy theory? What is a careless word when it comes to me responding to a text that I got? So that's sort of my sieve. I want to be careful with my words, no matter what it is. And I don't know, that's where I am. But here's the deal, Joey. I don't know, because I think sometimes people post and say things that they think are important, and I want to honor that. But at the same time, I want to say, ooh, did you carefully think about that word?
But I think you did say something that was really helpful to me, just in terms of, like, if it was like some sort of tool or resource, like to take time and process. Like, it's not wrong to go ahead and entertain, or at least do your research. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good thing for us to be informed. And I think the point maybe you just made was, sometimes we hear things and we see things and we hear the right saying one thing and the left saying the other, and we got the media and all this kind of stuff. And what you just said was, like, you just take some time to process, to think. And unfortunately what happens is people are too quick. They don't process and they don't fact find as best they can, and they just click the retweet button or the share button, right? Jeff, what have you been thinking about? Yeah.
Well, yeah, if we're going to go down the conspiracy theory social media.
Sure, let's do it.
Whatever.
Let's go for it.
You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's
Can
funny.
we just go for a little bit and then can we come to something else?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of started though this time, so yeah.
You started it.
I did.
Well, so it's funny. One thing I've started noticing, even since we recorded on, what was that, in March, or was it Monday? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've started noticing a trend with people sharing stuff of, they like qualified. If you are a Christian, then if you are a brother or sister in Christ, you should, blah, blah, blah. And it's almost, people are posturing things with the kind of the same thing that comes across when somebody says, well, I prayed about it. So what am I supposed to argue with you about now? Because you already kind of threw the trump card down. I can't, say anything to that. So there seems to be this need to either prove something or validate ourselves, or I won't even say themselves, let's say ourselves, just something. There's some desire, it feels like, online to somehow prove some bigger argument that should be made, should be bought into. I was looking at, there's a friend of mine, his songwriter in Nashville, he posted on Facebook just this morning. I thought this was really good. He said, on COVID-19, it's a conspiracy. There's definitely something bigger going on here. We're being persecuted and we cannot be silent. Also on Ahmaud Arbery, it's just an isolated incident. There's nothing bigger going on here. No one's being persecuted. Be quiet. And it's like, take any versions of both of those and extrapolate them out in any direction. And that's just what we're kind of getting bombarded with. Oh, and also, if you turn on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, you can watch, in fact, that's a fascinating thing to do if you haven't done it. Watch one of like Trump's press conferences. And I'm not anti, whatever. This isn't one of those statements. But if you watch CNN and watch Fox and MSNBC in real time with each other, like have two different screens open up and watch the things they put across the bottom of the screen when the president says something, and they're listening to two completely different conversations at the same time coming out of one guy's mouth. And I feel like that's what we kind of see on social media. I'm sure I'm guilty of it too. I'm sure I've said or shared things with, in the back of my mind, it's like, this is going to get my point across. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not in my own words, but it's going to get my point across.
Yeah, and I think
makes sense.
Yes, and I this is going to sound, man. I think if Jeff's thing is community and bringing up community in all of our episodes, which I'm sure is coming sooner or later.
Oh yeah, right here on page 4. Right here on page 4.
Which is so ironic, Joey, since you're the community pastor.
Yeah, that is funny. But
yep.
But my thing is probably just this phrase of taking a beat or taking a couple beats. Yeah. Like, we are in a culture that's like, gotta respond now. Mm-hmm. And but I just think as we go down this responding to conspiracy theories, or not even conspiracy theories, but like, you hate people and you want them to die if you go out in public. So that's the other drastic side, right? So we have these two sides, and we feel like we constantly have to pick a side. And I was talking to somebody recently, and I was just like, man, I just think we got to stop thinking about it from a posture of sides. And we just need to like prayerfully consider even moment by moment and just take some beats to research and to do the things. I mean, we don't want to walk around in ignorance. Like, we want to be informed, but I just think we as Christ followers, and I think that's the other kind of track I'll go, which is, we have to be careful not to be so passionate about propaganda, or that's a negative word, I guess, but opposition aside, than the gospel. And so we have to ask ourselves a series of questions, which, a little shameless plug, if you go to Facebook, Equip Austin Ridge, we posted on Monday a resource, which we do every Monday, which is 7 questions to ask yourself before you say or post anything. And one of the biggest things is, am I promoting peace? Am I promoting the gospel? Am I being winsome and wooing non-Christians, to what I'm saying? And one of the questions is, are you just trying to win an argument and trying to be right? Or are you trying to win others over? And I just think we have to be a lot more about winning others over than just winning arguments, and we just have to be cautious of that. And that's just for any of us, for any situation, regardless of a pandemic. That's in our marriages. That's in our friendships and our relationships with our children. I mean, it's just taking a beat and just slowing down enough to fact find and pray to the Lord.
And I would say to that, Joey, in the taking the beat, I think we have to look at what's underneath the surface of whatever it is that we're about to say or post. So what I mean by that is, how I react to something reflects what I believe about God. and it's going to shout out to the world what I believe about God. If I am in this particular situation panicked, and if I think we have like, I don't know how to explain it, but I want what I post, what I say, what I text, I want those things to reflect that I believe God is in control. I believe he is sovereign. I believe that he is adequate when I am fearful about the situation, because I do get fearful. I don't think I have to pretend I'm not fearful or that I'm not sad or that I'm not grieving. But I want what I say to shout to the world, yes, I am these things, but God is bigger. So is what I'm posting or saying making me look fearful and therefore making the God I serve look small? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what you're saying is if you act like Jesus,
People will want to be like Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
And they will like Jesus on top of
Really
it.
like Jesus.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to, like, you mentioned some things, and we've talked about this. We talked about it with Brad. Just what are the things that people say? That God is sovereign and God is good in this time. And I think for Christ followers, it's good to have that foundation of understanding. But let me say this. We can't rely on day-old bread, because what's day-old bread? It's stale. It's not as good as the fresh bread that comes out of the oven. Now, follow my example. I have a visitor
Special
right
guest.
now.
Special guest.
And
That's
we're not gonna edit this out. Let's keep this.
Heavens
You
no.
wanna say, can you say hi? Can you say hi? Hi.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What's in his hand?
What
He
do you
got a
have?
bell or something?
A Lego man.
Oh, wait, there's
here comes more.
another one peeking in.
Oh, all right. Can you guys? All right.
Oh, I wish our audience could see what we're seeing. I'm sorry y'all are only hearing this, but Joey's precious children have sneaked into the closet where he was trying to record quietly.
Exactly. Yes. Well, there you go. So, but I think that there's nothing like fresh bread out of the oven. Now, follow this. Like, the daily bread is the word. And I think we have to recapture, like, for all of us, this intimacy with the Lord and dependence on his word and fighting for that, because when we intake his word, compassion grows in our hearts, and grace grows in our hearts, and love grows in our hearts. And I think when we fill and fuel our hearts and minds with strictly what's written by the media or what's written by a blogger that you like, what often is fueled is the opposite of compassion, grace, and love. It's wanting to be right, and it's often sowing seeds of hate, and people are stupid, and like we just don't want to walk around with the posture that the other side of whoever doesn't agree with me is the Antichrist and they're dumb. That's just not it, right? And I think that comes back to being led by God's word, being Christ dependent, being prayer dependent in this time, right? Are you guys tracking with me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm laughing at your analogy because basically what you're saying is you are what you eat, right? Like what we are consuming, consuming is going to come out.
That's so good.
If I'm not consuming the word, guess what's not coming out? So I love that analogy. Plus, I just want to eat some fresh baked bread. So in a physical sense, a spiritual sense, we should go there.
Come over to our house. My wife got some of that Easy Tiger starter from somebody. And so we've had loaves of bread popping out of our oven each week.
Nice.
So
I live about 10 minutes from you, Jeff. So that's all I'm saying.
Come on, bring
it. You come to me, bring it.
Well, one thing Lorri said that I thought was really good is that it reveals what we believe about God. But I'd add to that, I think the way we engage with, share, speak about whatever, I think it also reveals how we view each other. I think that it shows either one, and also of ourselves, either one, it reveals this narcissism that's just latent in us that, see, I was right. Everyone should agree with me. I mean, it certainly reveals that, but it gives us an us-them view of everyone. I think just you're either in my camp or you're not. And if you're not in my camp, that means you're wrong. In fact, you might even be evil, kind of like Joe, what you were saying. In fact, you might not even just be evil. You might be in cahoots with all these people over here that I know are against us. And we just go down this trail of bad thinking, about, and it starts with God, but it ultimately leads to each other. I mean, to love the Lord God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and our neighbor as ourselves. I mean, that's why those two are joined at the hip, because we can't do one without rightly doing the other. It made me think too, as we're talking, turn to Exodus 32, the story of the golden calf. I mean, it's funny. It's right on the heels of the instructions about the Sabbath at the end of Exodus 31, which we talked about
the Sabbath,
last week, and, but it's just, I think the Israelite people kind of in their minds were going, well, something must be up. And they're just concocting this narrative, whether it's true or whether it's not, doesn't even matter, because they just take this narrative that they come up with. Well, he hadn't come down in a while, so I guess we better come figure out how we're going to fix this thing. Hey, Aaron, would you make us this calf? Well, sure.
And I love it. They're like, what do you think God would want us to do? Well, he already told you what to do. Do what he told you to do, not make up some crazy rules about what he would want you to do.
Well,
right?
and even then I've read some commentary that their ultimate desire wasn't totally off base, because
I agree.
They just wanted something to represent Yahweh, not to take his place necessarily. That's why there's a second commandment about not making any graven images. Man, that's why that one's in there. It's like, don't even come up with something that looks kind of like me and acts kind of like me. Like, just worship me. And I think that we kind of create these golden calves with anytime. If we see a YouTube video that gives us hope, like that's where our hope is coming from. Or if we see an argument that gives us hope, then we have, as Christ followers, we have to take a step back and ask, why is this where my hope is coming from? And I think that's the convicting part to me. It happens to me too. I'll see something, it's just like, yes, and I think God the whole time is just going, but why don't you just pursue me? Because I've got all that and more for you right now.
That's so good. That's so good, because regardless of circumstance, not that we want people to go back to work. We want people to have jobs. We're not saying that. We want people to be healthy. We don't want people to die. Like, both things can be true. And yet we can't, there's nothing we can do. We can't. So let's keep pursuing God, because God's in control. There was I'm blanking on the reference right now, but I was reading in my quiet time the last couple of days about, I think it was in the Acts, and I think it was Paul. Anyway, I think, was it Herod? Who did God cause to die? I think Herod. God. Yeah. So like, there was all this turmoil, and I think like Paul was just preaching the God, or no, Peter was in jail. That's what it was. Peter was, I think it's 11, 12, 13. And Lori's laughing at me because I'm trying to recall this from memory, but
covered all your bases just
the
in
death
case.
of Herod is definitely one of those. Acts 12, 20 to.
But, and it's right after the Peter is broken out of prison. Right.
Yeah, he's been rescued.
And so, he's, and it's just amazing that like God was in absolute control, and who was bringing persecution against the church, God took care of that. And that is not some transfer over to like God killing any politician. Okay. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like the reality of it is that God is in control, and he's going to work out his plan. And we have to be faithful to the gospel and to him, not one side or the next. And so let me ask you guys this question. How would you recommend lovingly, like we've talked about it here, and where we should land, and how we should process this stuff in a Christ honoring way, God honoring way. But how would you just encourage engaging people who are on so strongly on one side of the fence or the other? Like, what are some ways you can lovingly pursue them and not just tell them, hey, stop, you're making a fool of yourself? Like what's the loving way to do that?
Yeah, I think there is room for loving rebuke depending on the quality of the relationship already. I think going after somebody online who you never actually sat across the table from is, I think you're just wrong for doing that. I'm wrong when I do that. But I think there is space for loving rebuke, calling someone to repentance whom we actually know or have, invested in a relationship with. I love how Brad always talks about, he's like, man, I will talk with someone all day long about their questions, their doubts, whatever. I'm never going to get in an argument with somebody. Like if all you want to do is argue, I've got other ways to spend my time. So I think that's instructive too, is avoid foolish controversies, dissensions, things that stir up strife. Just that whole admonishment. I think we're wise when we do that.
That's good.
I think so too. I mean, it's funny, what's going through my mind is the podcast that we did about conflict resolution, and how sometimes we also are not confronted very well. It's just as hard to be confronted as it is to do the confronting. And it is hard. But I do think the Bible gives instruction about how to confront someone well and how to receive that well. But I do think we have to count the cost of it. Is it worth it? Is it a person that we think would receive it well and it would be conciliatory, or would it start a fight? I don't know. Because here's why I'm saying that. There's a couple of people who I'm friends with on Facebook or whatever, and I think in their heart, they truly believe that the things they are currently posting are encouraging people toward like this necessary, healthy civil disobedience that they think is our responsibility as Americans and as Christians. And I don't know what to do with that. I truly don't know what to do with that, because I think in their hearts, they think that to be silent is the greater evil. So what do you do?
Yeah, no, that's good. The episode you're talking about is episode 40, being a Christ follower and conflict resolution. And by the way, another conversation that might be helpful as well is episode 38 was an episode that we did on being a Christ follower and not being that guy. And that really focused on social media behavior and of a Christ follower. So check out those two podcasts that I think would be helpful. And we double click on both those subjects as well. I think you're right. Both of you guys are right. Just lovingly, graciously, but having discernment, again, practicing what you feel already about the issue is you don't want to be right. You're not trying to win an argument. You're just trying to win them over. I just think keeping in mind that, the world is watching. And so whether you're on the right, the left, or in the middle, however you're presenting, whatever side you're on, the world is watching. And we want to be, some people love when I use this word or don't love when I use this word, but winsome. We want to be winsome for with the gospel, and we want to be salt and light. We want to be have a good fragrance about us. And so I just think we need to be mindful of that. Lorri, you said 15 minutes ago that we need to go somewhere else besides this. So
we did. We went somewhere else besides it.
Okay. All right. So, but things are going to be rapidly changing, and we're going to be cautious and responding to every little thing. But we felt like this was a conversation that was probably helpful. Any other thoughts that, as we kind of sign off maybe for a week or two, that are just, you want to call our people to remember and to just be processing as news changes and things come out?
Well, just the fact that everything we're going through right now is temporary. Man, I was watching, there's a new Seinfeld special on Netflix right now. It's like 23 Hours to Kill or something like that. And he has this whole bit about going out. And it's interesting because there's just so much of his act. I mean, obviously he did it before all this went down, but I think last year. And he talks about just this goal of going out. And it's like the goal of going out is so you can get to a point where you just want to go back home, and you go to work so that you can come home, so that you can get tired of being at home, and go on vacation so that you can get tired of that. It's like we're just not satisfied, right? And so I think seasons like this, and it's funny, I always have a Seinfeld reference ready to go. If you look on my bookshelves in my office, I literally have like theology, doctrine, and the sign language book. Like that's the only non-Christian nerd book I have on my shelf is sign language from back in the 90s. Anyway, said all that to say that we're just not wired to ever be content in this world. I mean, that if there's any good that comes from something like this, that it remind us that this is not what we were created for, right? Mm-hmm. We were created for God's presence, but we were created to be good stewards of the earth in which he has placed us. And good stewardship is not just taking care of the earth, it's taking care of one another and taking opportunities to love each other well, I think is one of the ways we just carry out that mandate that God gave us to, in the world that he created, to image Christ. And I just think that, if you go back and listen to the episodes in this season, what are they, Joey? Led by God's word, Christ-centered, all those different metrics that we have is our values. Which one of those, you kind of answer your question, Joey, which one of those is missing in what I just did, am doing, or am about to?
That's great.
So I think all those things are instructive for us in something like this.
Yeah. So if you go back to, oh no, Lorri, don't put that in chat. Just call him out. Call him out.
So sorry.
What I do? What I do?
Pen clicking. Bro.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All of our listeners are like, stop clicking your pen. No, but in the midst of your pen clicking, I did hear that. I did hear. Go watch or listen to Roundtables, our core values, or go to our website and just look at our core values, and it's a great evaluation tool to say, where am I lacking some of these areas, the core values of a Christ follower? What do I need to grow in? And it's just a great lens to look out of. How you're coming across, and how you not even how you're coming across, because what's most important is the matter of the heart and what's going on in your heart. And that's what's most important. And what we would just plead to you, what we would challenge you with is just to fight for that. Lorri, any closing kind of thoughts, encouragements?
That's exactly where I was going to go, was just the two things, the double-pronged thing of, yes, we should love each other. That's what we should be known for, truth and love, not just truth and truth. Truth and love. And also that we need to grow through this. One of Brad's many Bradisms is that God doesn't waste pain. Let's not waste this for ourselves. Whatever pain we're going through, let's look beneath the surface. What is this? What is my reaction to this, showing what I believe about God? And where that's faulty, let's go to the word and grow through this and stretch through it.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I just add to that, just reading in 1 Corinthians 13, and I'll just read the passage that if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries, conspiracies, and everything the government could ever possibly think to do to me, and all knowledge, and if I have all faith as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And if I give away all I have and deliver my body to be burned and wear a face mask at Lowe's and have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind, does not envy or boast, is not arrogant or rude, does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable, that's convicting, or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a great passage to look up. I think of passages like 1 Corinthians 9, where Paul lays down his rights. I think of the conversation about the weaker brother, stronger brother, and like how we're coming across. I think of passages like Lorri mentioned earlier, Matthew 12, where it talked about the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Like we just have to be cognizant of that. If you want some more verses to process through this, I would encourage you to go to our Facebook page and look at that Monday resource at Equip Austin Ridge. Also, listen, if you want to talk and you want to process this, really and truly, I mean, this is an invitation. If you feel like you just need a forum to process this and you really have this urge to go to social media or to go public, please email us, equip@austinridge.org, and we would love to. Okay, I don't know if I'd love it, but I'd be willing to really process with you and to have a conversation with you, because we want you to feel that the church is a safe place for you to process what God's doing or what you feel God's doing in your life and what you're processing as this pandemic is concerned and about politics are concerned, because we don't want you to feel isolated and we don't want you to feel alone. And there goes the community plug, which is,
thanks for doing it for me this time.
Don't go through this alone, and don't just go through this with people that think like you. Be humble enough to converse with people who think differently in a productive way, and so that you can process this. So email us, equip@austinridge.org. Check out some of those other podcasts, read some of those scriptures. We do miss you. We really, as a staff, talk about missing seeing you guys on Sunday morning. We can't wait until that time comes. For updates on that, please just go to our website and continue checking back there about when we might meet again in person. In the meantime, keep checking back for some updated podcasts, and we will hopefully see you guys soon. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Equip podcast. Like Joey mentioned, the team will be posting new episodes on and off over the next several weeks, so make sure to follow the Equip Austin Ridge Facebook page to stay up to date on new episodes as well as other equipping resources. We'd love to hear from you, so if you have comments or questions, please email us at equip@austinridge.org. And finally, don't forget to share and subscribe. See you next time.